A very happy Diwali to all of you and a very prosperous new year. The prosperity that we should ask for as spiritual seekers is of dispassion. That's the spiritual prosperity. Material, those who want material prosperity, yes, may they have that, abhyudaya, but nishreyasa, which is the extreme good, will only be gained through dispassion. So vairagya is what we pray to the Lord for as spiritual seekers. And we were on the topic of Atman. We are on the topic of Atman right now. And in verse 211, which we saw last time, Bhagwan Shankaracharya said that the first thing to know is that Atman is self-effulgent. Self-effulgent means which can be known without any other means. Okay. We give sun as an example, but you have to understand that even sun is not self-effulgent. And the reason that it is not self-effulgent is because you require a conscious being to validate the sun. Eyes are required to validate the sun. That's why sun is not, in example we give, but that's what we have to remember is that the sun gets its illumination from the pure consciousness. But this pure consciousness is, don't think about when we say self-illuminating, don't think like a light kind of a thing. Awareness is more of it. Like how you are very naturally aware that you are there. You're very naturally aware that you're a male or a female. You're naturally aware of all these things. That awareness is what we are talking when we say self-illuminating. Because when we use the word illumination, we think of lights. So sunlight or tube light or some light, LED lights or whatever. It's not like that light. It is an awareness. And Bhagwan went on to say that it is pancha kosha vilakshana. It is different from the 5 koshas. And it is the sakshi of the avastha traya. Avastha state, waking, dream, and deep sleep. Traya 3. The 3 states. It is a sakshi, I told you. If the 3 states are considered to be real, then it is a sakshi. But from the ultimate standpoint, because the 3 states are also mithya, they are false, from the ultimate standpoint, we cannot call Atman as a sakshi. Sakshat ikshate iti sakshi, witness. Sakshi means witness. But one becomes a witness if there is something to be witnessed. Otherwise, that person cannot be called as a witness. So when the 3 states are considered to be there, Atman is Sakshi. It is the one that is witnessing the 3 states. But you have to understand that the 3 states are also mithya. And when they are falsified, Atman loses its position as Sakshi. So that is not, that Sakshi is not ultimate. That should be remembered. Sat Nirvikara Niranjana, without any modification whatsoever. There is no modification within itself and without. And Niranjana, taintless. There is absolutely no impurity because it's the only thing, pure consciousness is the only thing. And it's not tainted by sattva, rajas, and tamas. That also is important to understand. Sattva, rajas, and tamas we say are impurities. Okay, that's fine. But when it comes to pure consciousness, sattva also becomes an impurity. Om in our chart is beyond sattva. And that's why the necessity to go beyond good and bad both. So to go beyond good and bad, you need to be first in sattva, in good, and then you transcend both. Okay? Sadananda, it's ever blissful. Savidneha, it is this swatmatvena vipashchita. Vipashchita, the wise person means one who is a seeker must realize this as his own self, as her own self or his own self, not to be realized somewhere outside. Okay. And then Bhagavan Shankaracharya went on to, then there is a question by the disciple. It is to negate the Shunyavad in Buddhists, because the disciple says, "Oh Guru, when I negate the five Panchakoshas, the five sheets, then nothing remains. There is nothing, because, and the Guru says, yeah, but who is it that is saying that there is nothing? You need to go after that. You need to realize that which is actually saying that there is nothing. Because when there is nothing, there has to be somebody, some conscious being to say, I can say there is nobody in the house, but I have to be here now to say that there is nobody else in the house. If I am only not here, then who will say that there is nobody in the house? That way, even when we say there is nothing, and that's what the Shunyavad Buddhists say, I told you, they said that the world has come from a void. So the other point is, where have we seen anything coming from a void, from nothing? So how can a world come? How can the snake just come if there is no rope? That's the point. So every illusion, world is an illusion. They say, we say the same thing. But every illusion has to have a substratum. You cannot have an illusion without a substratum. And that's why nothing void cannot be a substratum. Something has to be there. And that's what Vedanta calls as pure consciousness. Okay? And so this is, the Guru has replied that. And then he talks about the witness in 2:15, that which is witnessed by something else has the latter as a witness. That's what I told you. When you say sakshi or witness, then there has to be something which is witnessed. And when that something which is witnessed is falsified, then this entity loses its position as sakshi, not loses its position, not goes away, but sakshi, you cannot call Atman as sakshi either. So when they make the difference, because Atma is in the individual, so Atma is a sakshi of the three states, but Brahman is not a sakshi of anything. And Atma and Brahman are one. That's why Atma is called also as sakshi, but that doesn't make Atma any less, any lower than Brahman. It is Brahman. But as long as these three states are considered, body, mind, intellect is considered as real, then it is a sakshi. And it is also, the Atman is a witness of itself, for it, and for it is realized only by itself. So this Atman, which now I consider to be, which is what is ego, I consider it to be Atman. Atman is what? Self, I. When I say I speak, then who is that I? That I is the reflection, is the ego which is saying I speak, I see, I hear, I taste, I touch. So that ego, there is only that one ego which has to falsify itself, means it has to understand that I am false. That is the recognition, that is realization. The minute the ego comes to know that, oh man, I don't even have any reality, and all these things that I'm saying about myself, how can they be real? I am only not. And that is realization. So Atman is a witness of itself, for it is realized only by itself. How can it realize itself? By knowing its falsity. Know that the ego, which is right now being considered as Atman, is false. Is false. Why? Because there is a double dependency, I told you. There's a dependency on the medium and there's a dependency on the object, which is being reflected, which in this case is a pure consciousness. I use the word object, but that doesn't mean pure consciousness is an object, for lack of a better term. Okay. And then Bhagavan goes on to explain that which clearly manifests itself. So in the waking state, it's a very clear manifestation of the pure consciousness. I know that I am functioning, because all my mind and senses are fully awake, are fully functional. In deep sleep, they're not functional at all. And yet when I wake up, I know that I had a good sleep. So that's why, even though I didn't experience myself in deep sleep, it was there. Otherwise, how would I have the memory that I had a good sleep? And in dream, there is a partial manifestation, because I see an illusion and I consider it to be real. So there is a partial manifestation in dream. And that is what he says. uh, of the ego, which witnesses the ego, the intellect, etc., which are of different forms and modifications. The ego goes on modifying, the intellect goes on modifying, the body goes on modifying, and then the ego goes on saying, I have changed, I have changed, I have changed. But actually, what has changed is matter, and therefore they say ego has modifications. I told you last time also. Right now, I'm a speaker, and then after the hour is over, then I will become a TV watcher or a eater or a cook or whatever. And so that ego will change. So the ego goes on changing throughout the day. Okay. But pure consciousness remains as is. There is no modification in pure consciousness. That is to be understood. We had completed this verse. Now Bhagavan gives us an example. घटोदके बिम्बितमर्कबिम्बम् आलोक्य मूढो रविमेव मन्यते तथा चिदाभासमुपाधिसंस्थं भ्रान्त्याहमित्येव जडोऽभिमन्यते. The fool, on seeing the reflection of the sun in the water in a jar, considers it to be the sun itself. So too, the fool, through delusion, identifies himself with the reflection of the chit caught in the intellect and considers it to be the I, his own identity. So a comparison is made. Bhagavan says that somebody is seeing the reflection of the sun in a bucket of water or in whatever and considers the reflection only to be the real sun. Okay. Now, in case of the reflection, there will be very few people who would really think that, but this is an example. So just like a person, if he considers the reflection to be the real sun, that way, what is happening in our case, though, that is exactly what is happening in our case. There is this reflection which is being formed in the mind-intellect pool, and that reflection is saying things and doing things, and I am thinking that that is me. So I have identified with that ego. I have made the ego as Atma. And that separation has to happen. That this is the ego and Atma is the one who is only witnessing what the ego is frolicking about. You know, oh, ego is saying, oh, now I'm driving. Now I will go here. Now I will enjoy that movie. Now I will do this. And Atman is just watching. In Mundaka Upanishad, if anybody has the book, there is a beautiful metaphor of a tree with two birds perched on it. And the Upanishad talks about these two birds. One bird, the Upanishad says, one bird is pecking at the fruit, and then sometimes it is sour, then sometimes it's sweet, and then the bird is happy. So the one bird is going back and forth, you know, this, and the other bird is quietly watching, not pecking at the fruit, not doing anything, nothing, just watching. And Upanishad says that this bird which is pecking at every fruit and getting happy and, you know, sorrowful is the jiva. That is the ego. And the sakshi, the other bird, is the sakshi. So that is the Atman. Now this here, Bhagavan is saying, the foolish one thinks that this bird which is pecking at the fruit is the real thing. This is what the foolish one is thinking. But he should come to know that no, this is not the real one. The witness is the real one. And the Upanishad then says that when this bird, and this bird jiva is perched on a lower branch, when it looks up, it is not looking up only, it is looking down and all fruits, this, that, going here, there. When it looks up to that, it realizes its falsity. Now, looking up there is for us looking inside. So when we become introverted, when we purify our mind, even last time I told you, I am speaking and at the same time, I know that I'm speaking, and that is the difference. So small I is speaking and the big I is watching, and I am aware. Every one of us is actually aware. That's why I'm saying do it as a sadhana. Sit quietly in meditation and think whatever thoughts are coming, but then you will realize slowly that, yeah, thoughts are coming, but there is somebody else who's watching as well. This is a sadhana that you have to do yourself. I can only tell you. And this is what this verse is saying. Okay. So is it clear so far? Are there any questions? All okay? All right. Ghatam jalam tad gatamarkabimbam vihaya sarvam vinirikshya terkaha tatastha etat tritayava bhasakaha swayam prakasho vidushaya tha tatha. The intelligent man leaves aside the jar, the water, and the reflection of the sun in it and sees the self-luminous sun. So too, the wise realize the self-luminous reality which illumines these three and recognizes it as independent of them all. So this is what Bhagavan says, that this man, the foolish man, has seen the jar and the water and the reflection, considering the reflection to be real. But then the person, if the person discards the jar, discards the water, what will happen is, when the water and the jar are discarded, that reflection cannot stay. And in this case, the jar and the water are body and the mind. Water is the mind, jar is the body. So mind is in the body, and in that mind, the reflection has happened. Now you negate the body, you negate the mind. How can the reflection stay? So what will remain is that object. The sun is permanent. The sun is always there. So the pure consciousness is always there. That way, the wise man or a person of very highly purified intellect will be able to do this discrimination. That is Viveka. When in Sattva Bodh, we see Viveka, the definition of Viveka is Sat, Asat, discrimination. Discrimination between the real self, and the not self. So this jar and water and reflection are all falling under not self. So when I negate jar and water, that's all I have to do. Negate the jar, negate the water. How will the reflection remain? That is the not self. So what will remain is only the self, because the self is not going anywhere. It is permanently there. It is really real. That's why we say it is really real. This jar and water are relatively real. Okay. So this is what he's saying. All very simple. Of course, Bhagavan will say it is not that simple. Please let me tell you, it's not. It feels very, oh geez, I'll just negate. It's very, the ego will not let you negate. That is what the ego does, because the ego knows that the minute the body and mind are negated, I am going to die. There's no way that I want to die. So I will hold on to the body, I will hold on to the mind, I will hold on to all my memories, my insults, my pleasures, my joys, and I'm not letting go of that. But the idea is to let go. That is the Purushartha, what is called as Purushartha or self-effort. That is the effort, that is where we have to put in our effort. Don't worry about the pure consciousness, nothing. Just worry about your own equipment. And keep considering it to be matter. And so then it will not matter anymore until it doesn't matter anymore. That's how it is. It's matter. You keep pounding it in your head. Finally, it will not matter. The next three verses we take together. Deham dhyam chit prapibimbam visrujya buddhau nihitam guhayam drashtaaramatmanam akhanda bodham sarva prakasham sad vilakshanam nityam vibhum sarvagatam susukshmaha antarbahi shunyam ananyamatmanah vidnyaya samyak nijarupametat Pumana vipapma virajo vimrutyuhu vishoka ananda ghano vipaschita swayam kutaschinna bibheti kaschita nanyosti panta bhavabandha muktehe vina swatattvagamam mumukshoho. So too means what? Continuing from the previous verse. What did Bhagavan say in the previous word? Give up the jar, give up the water. then what will remain is only the original sun, because the reflection of the sun will have disappeared. So too, similarly, leaving aside the body, I already told you, leaving aside the body, the intellect and the reflection of Chit in it. Actually, if you leave aside the body and the intellect, you really don't have to leave aside the Chit, honestly. Because if body and intellect go away, then where the Chit will remain? Because the Chit is dependent on the medium. I told you, it has two dependencies. The ego has two dependencies, the medium and the object. The way to negate the reflection is either you get rid of the object, which you can't. In an ordinary example of the mirror, and I'm standing in front of the mirror, I can move away from the mirror. That's an ordinary example, which means the reflection will go. But in our case, in this case, the pure consciousness cannot go anywhere. You cannot negate pure consciousness. So the only thing to negate is the medium. So when you negate, when you falsify, negating does not mean getting rid of it and all those kinds of things. No, 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 no. Only in your mind you should know. Okay, the intellect, the reflection, and realizing in the cave of the intellect, the witness, the self, which is knowledge absolute. Because so far as the body and intellect were there, Atman was a witness of the body and intellect, thoughts, right? That's what I told you. You are thinking, you are speaking, and there is somebody watching. This is that bird which is on the upper branch, this lower. So as long as it is there, that upper bird is, it is a witness. As long as the bird is there on the lower branch, the one on the upper branch is a witness. Now this bird is getting negated, and by negation of the medium, by negation of the body and the intellect, like the jar and the water, when this bird gets negated, then that bird up there, how can it be called as a witness? So here, that's why he's saying the witness, the self. It is a witness as long as the ego is there, but it is actually the self. It is actually the self. It is not a witness. Actually, it is not a witness, but as long as it is there, it is a witness, which is knowledge absolute, pure consciousness, right? Sat Chit Ananda, which is the cause of everything, which is distinct from the gross and the subtle, which is eternal and omnipresent. These descriptions we have heard, okay? Which is distinct from the gross and subtle. We saw Panchakosha Vilakshanaha. Already Bhagavan said, Panchakosha Vilakshana. Panchakosha is gross matter and subtle matter. The Panchakoshas, right? Gross body is gross, and the mental Manomaya and Vijnanamaya Kosha are subtle. So gross and subtle bodies, which is eternal and omnipresent. So it's sarva vyapi. It's present everywhere, all pervading, sarva vyapi, omnipresent, also present everywhere, and supremely subtle. Supremely subtle we means beyond time and space. So time began from pure consciousness. Time and space emerged from pure consciousness, and therefore time and space also are matter. You have to understand that time, see, you know, time, even space, they're dependent on the pure consciousness. And the very simple example is, when you're in deep sleep, do you know how much time you slept? You know, in the afternoon, sometimes if you're taking a nap, you think you slept only for, or after you hit the snooze button. The alarm goes off, you hit the snooze button, and you think, oh, just 5 minutes, I will take a nap, right? And you think, oh, I took a nap only for 5 minutes. You look at the clock, it's 1 hour is gone. Does this sound familiar? Has this happened to? Okay, okay. That is what tells you that time is not real. And space. You may walk from your bed and go and sleep on the sofa. People walk in the sleep, right? They don't know. And in sleep, do I know where I'm sleeping? If I'm in deep sleep, I wouldn't know that I'm in a hotel room, I'm traveling, or I'm sleeping on the plane or something. So space and time are dependent on the pure consciousness. That is what tells us. And the reason that we say time is also not real, now we're going to change it, not tomorrow. If it was really real, do you think you could have changed it? Fall back is happening now, tomorrow, right? It's not real. So now they're discussing, should we or should we not? Because it is not real, they can discuss that. Otherwise, you cannot discuss that. And there are so many countries in the world that don't do it. And there is Saskatchewan in Canada who doesn't do it. Why? Because it's not real. So you want to do, you do. It's matter. Time and space are matter. Remember that. And which is okay, all supremely subtle, which is without exterior or interior. It's inside as well as outside. There is no boundaries. Exterior, interior come with the boundaries. I have the walls to this condo, so there is an inside my house and outside my house, because there's a door. Once I shut the door, then that is outside, and this, but there it's infinite. So it cannot have, if you have boundaries, it becomes limited, becomes finite. And so that's why this without exterior or interior means there is no wall, there is no boundary, there is no limit. It's unlimited, it's infinite, which is the one self. Because if we say that there is something other than self, then the infinity part is negated. Because then there is this one here, and then something is there over there. So there is a boundary. So infinity is negated. That's why we say there's only one self without anything else. By fully realizing this, one becomes free from sin, blemish, death, and grief, and becomes the ocean of bliss. So realization, I told you, is for the ego to falsify itself. Once that happens, once the realization happens that I am really not this ego which thought that I was doing this and that and seeing and smelling and touching, but I am that Brahman, which is pure consciousness, which does not see, does not touch, does not do anything. One becomes free from sin. Now, this sin word has to be understood at different levels. At a very lower level, it is like lying and cheating and stealing and all those things. Okay, so that we are not even considering. The sin in Vedanta, as you go higher up, now if you see Bhagwan Shankaracharya himself, he has written bhakti texts, bhakti on Ganga Stotra and Devi Stotra, all these bhakti texts he wrote. And then at the end, he asked for forgiveness. And he says, forgive me, O Lord, I have committed a sin. So the question arises is, okay, Bhagwan, we are calling you Bhagwan, and now you're telling us that you have sinned. And he says that I considered myself to be different from you because I've written a bhakti text. In bhakti, there is duality. I have considered this duality to be real, and that is why I've sinned. And now you please forgive me for that. That's the highest. Okay. So this sin at the level of the body, considering myself to be body, is sin. This is Vedantic definition of sin. Okay. It is not the ordinary definition of sin, where you have done something wrong, where you've, ran a red light, ran a stoplight, jaywalked, which I constantly do. I jaywalk across the road. There's nobody, this way, run. I do that, I'll be honest. But in Vedanta, you're not considering that as sin. You're not bothered about that. You can jaywalk, just keep yourself safe. Considering yourself to be the body. At the level of the mind, considering yourself to be the doer. I am the one that is doing all this. That is sin. And at the level of the causal body, because we have a gross body, a subtle body, and a causal body. In the chart, you see the BMI and the V. So B is considering to be the body, mind and intellect, considering to be the doer. And at the level of the vasanas, causal body, consider ignorance of the self, of my real self, is a sin. So that's why Bhagwan says that when I consider you to be different than me, then I'm at the level of the body, mind, and intellect, and that itself is a sin for me, for him. Okay? So that is why if you come to identify yourself with the Om, you are freed from all these sins. Because there's no more identification with the body. So there is no thought that I am the body. There is no identification with the mind. So there is no thought that I'm the doer. And ignorance is gone. At the level of the vasana level, causal body, the ignorance is gone. So the principles of karma yoga, if you remember, that is what we are trying to do through karma yoga, converting karma into karma yoga. I am surrendering that ego to a higher altar. That's why karma yoga becomes very important. All right, I won't go into details, but you have heard that. Sin, then blemish is impurity. So there is no, that I think the word is viraja, vipapma, viraja in the 221, that's where we are now, blemish. Raja is rajas, which is impurity. Viraja is without rajas. There's no rajas, there's no tamas. Okay, that's what. And vimrutyuhi, I become immortal because the death is to the body. So when I disidentify with the body and I have identified with the immortal self, I'm immortal, I'm eternal. That is what it is. And then Vishoka, where is all the grief coming from? I will die, my near and dear ones will die, I will get disease, all that is coming from identification with the body. There cannot be grief if there is no identification with the body or mind. I got hurt, she insulted me, he insulted me, somebody did this, somebody did that. That is, hurt is coming from identification. That's why I told you, devalue the ego. It is the ego that is feeling hurt. So when you feel hurt, in happiness, it is difficult to do, but when you feel hurt, say, ego, you are hurt, I don't care. Then what is happening is when you say, I don't care, ego, you are hurt, you have, that is the capital I. You have identified yourself with the pure self, and now you are telling yourself, your lower self. That's why in chapter 6, Bhagavan says, you have to lift yourself by yourself. There is nobody else that can lift us. We have to lift ourselves by ourselves. So this higher mind is telling the lower mind, okay, you're hurt, I don't care. Then that what is happening is, oh yo, I got hurt, and then da 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 da. See, Bhagavan Shri Krishna, when Arjun was crying, he didn't offer him a hanky. My poor baby crying, let's both cry. He said, you are acting like, oh my God, what an insult. That's the reason. That's the reason. Okay. So there is no grief and becomes the ocean of bliss. Satchit Ananda. You have identified with the bliss. Being illumined, he is not afraid of anyone. Why? Because he realizes there is nobody else. Where is fear coming from? When I see that there is somebody other than me, that's where the fear comes from. Somebody walks, suddenly you don't know who it is. Oh, then you have got fear. So when this person has realized that I only am everywhere, all these people are just my own reflections, how can there be fear? Cannot be any fear. That's why he's not afraid of anyone. Not afraid of anyone means there is really no one to be afraid of. That is what it is. There is no one to be afraid of, because that someone else is me only. That someone else is me. That one is me. That one is me. Everything is me only, because I am the substratum of this entire world. For him who seeks liberation, there is no other path to break away from the bonds of transmigration than realizing the truth of his own self. This is the final conclusion. Bhagavan is saying, this is what happens. When you leave aside the body and intellect, when you negate the body and intellect, you will come, when you falsify the ego, when you negate the ego, you will come to realize yourself to be that pure self. Then you will be an ocean of bliss. There will be no more blemishes. There will be no more sin. There will be no more death. And there will be no grief, and there will be no fear. I've told you many times, Bhagavan Shankaracharya in his many commentaries, he makes this comment. He says the least that this knowledge can do for you is give you fearlessness. And if it is not giving you fearlessness, then you have not understood the knowledge correctly. Remember that. To a certain extent, fearlessness has to come. That's why I told you in the beginning of COVID, Swami Tejamanji said, the level of fear from 1 to 10 should be 3. These are his words. He said the level of fear should be 3. And the reason he says that how many people are 10 and how many people are 12 and 15 and 20, I've seen. How much fear is there? How much? Right? The reason he said 3 and didn't say 0, if he says 0, people will not be careful at all. Carefulness has to be there. You're asked to wear a mask, you wear a mask. You're asked to vaccinate, you vaccinate. All that, the that carefulness has to be there, but not that extreme fear, not the what word am I looking for? Okay, something with a P. Paranoia. Shouldn't be paranoid. That's why he said 3 you should have. First day he said, because he started Kathopanishad, first day he said, coronavirus is there. The level people are asking me, level of fear should be at 3. That's it. And that is coming from this knowledge. Okay, so that's why the one who wants liberation, there is no other way. Don't think that, okay, there are shortcuts, this, that. There are no shortcuts. There are no cuts. There is no other way. There is no other way. You have to realize yourself to be that pure self. There is no other way. Okay, any questions? Fine, all right. Brahma bhinnatva vijnanam bhavamokshasya karanam yena dvitiyamanandam brahma sampadyate budhaihi. The cause for liberation from transmigration is the realization of one's identity with Brahman. By means of this, wise men attain Brahman, the one without a second, the bliss absolute. He repeats himself. Just the reason for the repetition is because, we don't get it the first time. Somebody says once, even in normal, when we are explaining, we'll at least say twice or thrice. Aya, samajh mein aaya? This is what it is. Do you understand? This is a very subtle science. Vedanta is the subtlest of all sciences. So that's why Bhagavan says the liberation from transmigrations. Most of the people don't even realize that there is transmigration. They think we are born, we enjoy, and we go and it's over. It's not over. It is only a journey. We are only somewhere in the middle. We don't know how many lives have gone past and how many are going to come in the future. This is what Shastra says. That's why Vedas tell us that which is beyond our sense organs. Okay? And that there is rebirth and reincarnation. There have been cases, recorded cases of people remembering their previous births. So that faith we must have. And if we want liberation, this is also another problem, is that people say, but why should I? I'm happy. I'm happy here. So it's a matter of choice, whether you want to be permanently happy or you want to be up and down. So that's your choice. And that's the only way to get out of this cycle of birth and death, is by realizing our identity with Brahman. Okay, so the wise men, they the one who know, they strive for it. They strive for it. Brahma bhutastu sansritte vidvan vartate punaha vidnyatavam matah samyaga brahma bhinnatvam atmanah. No more does one return to the world of transmigration after having become of the nature of Brahman. One must therefore strive to realize one's identity with Brahman. This point we have seen many times in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavan Shri Krishna also tells Arjun that heaven is a point of return. You come to a place where there is no return. In chapter 15, now we will be coming to the verse, Yad gatva na nivartante, Bhagavan says, having gone where one does not return. Absolute. It is an absolute liberation. It is not a relative liberation. When we get the higher worlds by doing punya karma, lot of punya karma you do, you will get swarga. There's no problem with that. You will get it, but it will come to an end. All lokas end at some, they are within the realm of time. They will end in time. They begin in time. They will end. Just like this birth has begun in time and it will end in time, this body will end in time. Same way, you will take a birth into a higher world. You will take birth in heaven. So you have taken birth. That means there is death. Not the physical kind of death like we know, but the death is coming back to the mortal world. And that's why the people who really want final liberation aspire for this only, the identity between Jiva and Brahman. This is what Bhagavan is saying here, that one never, and Bhagavan Shri Krishna has promised that many times in Bhagavad Gita, that it is a point of no return. And that is the main difference between attaining heavens or Brahmaloka or any higher worlds as opposed to liberation. All the worlds are returnable. There's a return ticket. It's like buying a round trip ticket, around the world. It's a round trip ticket. It's not a one-way ticket. The one-way ticket is only for liberation. That's it. There's one way you go, you never come back. Okay. Satyam Jnanamanantam Brahma Vishuddham Param Swathah Siddham Nityanandaikarasam Pratyaga Abhinnam Nirantaram Jayati. There is no meter for this one. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma Vishuddham Param Swathah Siddham Nitya Ananda Eka Rasam Pratyaga Abhinnam Nirantaram Jayati. Brahman is existence, knowledge, absolute. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma is a term from Taittiriya Upanishad. Taittiriya Upanishad is the one that uses this. So we have always heard Satyam Jnanam, Satchit Ananda we have heard, and now the word is being used Anantam. The reason Ananta means no anta, means no end, means infinite. What Upanishad says, what Shruti says is real happiness is only in infinity. Infinitude, there can never be complete happiness. What you get is only pleasure, limited pleasure, which begins in time, which ends in time. That's why the word Anantam has been used by one Upanishad. Otherwise, others, they say Satchitananda, Satchitananda. But Anantam word is used for that. And that's what Bhagavan is taking up here. It's from Taittiriya Upanishad. Vishuddham, Visheshena Shuddham, extremely pure. Param, supreme. Why? Because beyond that there is nothing, and it is a point of no return. Swatha Siddham, self-illusion. It is of the nature of it. It can exist without anything else. It is happily existing without any support from anybody. We have seen all these terms before. Nitya, eternal, beyond time, so eternal. So it's not time has come from there. So it will never end. Nitya Ananda. Ananda, it's Nitya Ananda, ever blissful, ever blissful. No trace of sorrow in it at all. Ekarasam, homogeneous. Ekarasam, homogeneous. It is called as Ananda Ghana. Some places you will see this word Ananda Ghana. It is a homogeneous mass of bliss. That is how it is called. Homogeneous. So there's absolutely no parts, no differences, no nothing. Pratyag. Pratyag is within, very, very close. Abhinnam. Abhinnam. No differences at all. So in this world, we see the three types of differences: Swagata, Sajatiya, and Vijatiya. So Swagata Bheda is within my body itself. My eyes are not like the nose, my hands, legs, they're all different. Then Sajatiya means within the human race. Jati here is species. So within the human species, there are differences. So there is male, female, there is tall, short, there is fat, thin. So there are differences. Sajatiya means other person is also a human being, but there's a difference between that human being and me. So Sajatiya. And Vijatiya is a different species. So animal species is different from human. Animals are different from plants. So that is what Vijatiya. So this Abhinnam word negates Swagata, Sajatiya, and Vijatiya Vedas. It negates the three. These are the three differences that we see in the world. And this is negated by the word Abhinnam. Means even within itself, there is no differences. Like within myself, there are differences. Because in my body only, nose's function is different than the eyes, its shape is different. Everything is different. So there are differences within me which are not there. Nirantaram. Nirantaram. There is no within or without. Nirantar. There's absolutely no difference. Jayati. It is ever victorious. Ever victorious. Why? There's nobody to fight against. It's ever there. It is ever there. Okay. Any questions?